Dixie, did you see Josh?
All right, I want to welcome everyone to another virtual meeting of the Northern New England chapter of SABR. I am Bruce McClure, the chapter chair, and we always hold our meetings in conjunction with the Gardner-Waterman chapter of SABR from Vermont, Dr. Clayton Truder, chair. Now, tonight, we have a very special guest for you. The Baseball Bucket List is one of my favorite podcasts. It's the first one I listen to every week as things turn over and the new ones come out. On each episode of the show, creator and host Anna DiTomasso chats with different fans about their favorite baseball memories, bucket list items, and what the game means to them. I had the pleasure of being featured on episode 85 of the series and loved every second of my experience with the show. Therefore, let's welcome fellow SABR member, friend of our chapter, baseball fan, and content creator, Anna DiTomasso, this evening. Anna, welcome to Northern New England, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great, Bruce. Thank you for the stellar intro there. That was quite the endorsement. So I'll take every word of it, and I appreciate it.
You deserve the endorsement because your podcast is tip top of the baseball world as far as I am concerned. You have a unique and positive take on baseball fandom that frankly isn't really, it's not in the mainstream anymore. When I was a kid a long time ago, long before moving vehicles and telephones, there was a fandom that was root for the home team, but not beat up on the other guy. Mm-hmm. And we see that a lot today. And your podcast takes a lot of that out of baseball, and I really appreciate that. So here we are.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. That's exactly what we're after. So it's always nice to hear that that's how it comes across.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your baseball fandom and how you got started in our great game. Tell me about the genesis of your fandom of baseball.
Yeah, sure. It's a long story, as many baseball fans' stories are, but I'll try to give you the condensed version. I sit now today about 45 minutes away from Globe Life Field, and this is about the same area that I grew up in until we moved to Florida when I was in middle school. So as a kid, I grew up a rabid fan of the Texas Rangers in the days of Rafael Palmeiro, Pudge Rodriguez, Rusty Greer, Juan Gonzalez, those guys who were perhaps the greatest team to never do anything, as I like to say. But my dad took a job in Florida when I was in middle school and moved the family out there, and we were season ticket holders for the Tampa Bay Rays. And so the Rays are still my number one team, and I always like to root for the Rangers as long as they're not playing the Rays. So just kind of gave you my perception of how I hope this World Series goes.
I had forgotten that you were a Rays fan first. Mm-hmm. I had it back. I thought you were still a Rangers fan first, so to speak. And the reason I thought that was I saw some pictures of you on social media over the past few days where you did something kind of cool. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, I got to go to game 1 of the World Series on Friday. So picked the right one to go to in terms of the excitement that, the game brought us. Of the 11th inning walk-off, Adolis Garcia, and just an incredible experience. It was my second World Series game ever, but my first, what I call real World Series game, because the first one I went to was 2020 when there were only about 10,000 fans allowed into this stadium.
Okay, so that's very interesting. I didn't realize you were at 2020. That's actually kind of interesting because that had to be a strange experience, a postseason game that wasn't packed.
Yeah, it was really weird. And up until, I guess, Saturday night, I had seen more World Series games at Globe Life Field than the Texas Rangers. So that was, of course, the Tampa Bay Rays, my Tampa Bay Rays, and the Los Angeles Dodgers. The series didn't go the way I wanted it to, but yeah, what a weird experience. A very cool thing, though, because, everybody knows what that year was like and how kind of disheartening everything was. So the the fact that I got a chance to go see a ball game in person that year was pretty special.
I can only imagine because, I was sitting at home with my wife watching a lot of ball games and seeing cardboard cutouts in the stands and an awful lot of quiet. And I'm sure all of us here had the same experience on television. And it was odd at best. And then out comes the postseason in the bubble, and we all of a sudden we get fans there. And even then, was it exciting? Was there buzz? I watched it, and it was like, okay, but what did you feel it there? I mean, you drove there and watched it.
Yeah, it was a totally different experience last week as opposed to 3 years ago. 2020 was my first World Series game, so the only thing I could compare it to was the 2008 ALCS, which I can close my eyes to this day and still hear my ears ringing at thinking about that game. 2020 was not that. I will say that it was exciting to be out at the ballpark. There was still a sense of kind of uneasiness hanging over everywhere, but um it was a really cool experience. My dad flew in from South Carolina, so we got to do that together, and um definitely not the same emotion, environment, buzz, any of that palpable, just kind of living and breathing on every single pitch that I was feeling last week.
I want to talk about last week because the last time that I was in a major league ballpark for postseason action, you and I talked about that. It was game 6 of the 75 World Series, and I was this high. Oh God. What what's it what is that experience like nowadays with all the security measures, with all the differences in the fan experience that we see from my youth to now? Technologically, the ballparks, the comfort. Describe that experience that you had Friday night for those of us who haven't had that experience in the past couple of years, let alone my experience going back to 75.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I think for me, it didn't necessarily feel much different than a normal ball game at Globe Life Field. There was noise in certain instances, obviously, when exciting things were happening during the game, but it didn't, to me, have that same kind of buzz that I remember about the Trop back in 2008, or some of the things that I've been seeing on TV in the past several years. And I don't know if that's just showmanship. I don't know if the TV crews have a way of kind of making it seem a little more crazy than it is, or if that's um just kind of how Texas does things. But it was it was very it was very fun. I will say that I wasn't expecting to be able to have conversations with people during the game like I do normally. And so the fact that I was able to have, discussions with the folks sitting next to me was kind of a surprise, but one that I was happy about.
Yeah, I was insanely jealous when I saw those pictures of you because I haven't been in a postseason major league situation since I was a kid. You see it every year on television, but I haven't been in the ballpark in ages. I got the chance to do a couple with when I was working in minor league ball, but it's a lot different because nobody really goes
Mm.
to postseason minor league ball. At least up here in New England, you don't. By the time Labor Day rolls around, that's it. Well. So let's shift. We've talked about those experiences. You're a content creator, and you've come up with this fantastic section, for lack of better, of baseball, the baseball bucket list. You've come up with this fantastic topic. How did you come up with that idea, and what was the genesis of it? How did you get it started?
Yeah. So back in 2008, my dad had season tickets to the Rays, and I was home from college during the summer. And that was just our entire summer was I would finish soccer practice. We would drive up to the Trop and we would go to the game. And we were having so much fun with that we decided we were going to take basically like a week and a half trip up to see 5 of those ballparks in the Northeast. So we did Old Yankee Stadium and Shea in their final years. We did Fenway. We did Citizens Bank Park, and then we did Nationals Park in its inaugural season. And we're sitting there at the last game, kind of just looking at each other, going like, well, it kind of stinks that this is coming to an end. And just decided that like we kind of want to do all 30 of them. So it didn't end up happening that we did those together. It took, several years. I finished my 30th ballpark back in 2018 and just got to thinking like if I want to do this and if my dad wants to do it and I was running into people all the time who have similar goals, there should be a way for folks to kind of share those experiences and give tips and tricks. And, maybe if you've got experience with a ballpark that somebody else is brand new to, give them some insight into how they can have the best day possible there. And that was how the website was born. So it's an online community with free membership, and basically everybody gets to build their own baseball bucket list. So put up a list of all the things that you want to do or have done, keep track of all your ballpark journeys. And then the most important part is connecting with other folks who are just as crazy as you are. So that's how the website came to be. And then the next natural step was just to find somebody each week to have a conversation with. And so that's the podcast. It comes out every Thursday. And as you mentioned, every week I sit down with a different fan and kind of talk about how they came to love this great game, what their favorite baseball memories are, and what they hope to do as part of their bucket list in the future.
When I heard first time I heard baseball bucket list, I was thinking of that movie from years ago, and I'm thinking, oh, there's we're going to be talking to a lot of older people who are at kind of the end of their fandom, and they're not doing the things they're trying to fulfill things at the end of their lives, for lack of a better term. But you have this wide breadth of people that are involved with the website that do so many cool things with it, and it's quite a community. How large is it now?
Up over 2,000 folks. So
Oh wow.
yeah, it's growing every day, and it's just exciting. And we've got people from every state, including Hawaii. We got people from overseas. So I've learned a ton just connecting with people who know a lot more about baseball than I probably ever will.
All right, well, that's an interesting topic. How have you expanded your knowledge of baseball by starting all of this?
Okay, so just to show my ignorance a little bit, I always assumed that baseball was, I mean, it's America's game, right? America's pastime. And so I knew that it was played in other countries, but I didn't quite understand how incredible some of the international leagues and especially the fan bases are. So, having an opportunity to talk to people who have been over to Nippon Professional Baseball in Japan, or they've been to KBO in Korea. They've seen games in Netherlands or Australia. So I've added a lot more stops along the way of places that I would like to go see games. So that's really probably the biggest thing that I've picked up on is just how incredibly diverse this game really is.
I've noticed that Susan Nelson has her hand up. We'll get to her in a second. If you would like to ask Anna DiTomasso a question or make a comment this evening, go down to the bottom of the screen and hit the button that says reactions. And there'll be a button that pops up that says raise hand. This way we can get you in line, and you can talk with one of the great podcasters in our great sport, Anna DiTomasso. I'm going to go to Susan Nelson, who wants to get started with audience participation. Susan, nice to see you.
Thank you, Bruce. Yeah, I've listened to your podcast. It's a really good podcast, and I think it's not just the subject matter, which is fascinating, but the production values of your podcast is far above most of what I listen to. And I think that you have a great voice, and that's a big part of it. So I want to thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. It's it makes me feel warm and fuzzy to hear things like that, because the time that goes into it, definitely anytime someone says they enjoy it, it makes it worthwhile.
Let's bounce over to Ryan McClanahan. Ryan, go ahead, buddy.
Hi, Anna. What stadium has the best food?
Oh, man, that's so hard because I'm a vegetarian, right? So like I feel like I kind of I don't have great insight to that. I do know that I went to Oracle Park before I was a vegetarian, and I had some tacos out in their like center field area. Those were very good. I know that Texas is very well known for weird, crazy things that are probably enough to kill you if you tried to eat it all on your own. So if any of y'all are on Instagram, one of my good friends, her name is Valerie Ruiz, and I did an episode with her, but she is Stadium Food Girl on Instagram, and she's the go-to source. Like, you want to know anything about ballpark food, that's your girl right there.
You're going to have to email me her contact information, because I think I need to get her in on one of these meetings, because
Oh yeah,
we're all about the food up here.
yes, yeah, she's your girl. She's a professional.
You and I are going to talk a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Newest member James there. James, you're up.
Awesome. Thanks, Anna, for taking the time for us. You definitely have a new follower, and it's timely because my wife and I are, last week we're talking about visiting ballparks and checking some of the other ones out. But question for you, this kind of brings me back to when I was young, used to crave autographs and meeting players and stuff. Which ballpark has do you think, in your experience, do players mingle with fans the most?
Oh, that's a great question. And I would have said before they built this new one here in Texas that it was the ballpark in Arlington. I would have said that. But I have seen PNC. PNC seems to be a good one. Honestly speaking, it's kind of the ones where you're not expecting big draws, right? It seems to be, you don't have to fight the crowd so much to get down there or anything like that. I'm trying to think more. Comerica, I've seen a lot of people sign in Comerica. Great American Ballpark would be another one. So I think it's a lot of them. The newer ones, they seem to be kind of building these like moats that make it more and more difficult to access players. But the ones that are still on, they've been around a while. You got a little more access that way. So, and then of course it depends on the day of, how the particular player is feeling and how generous they are.
For sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
You got blown out last night, 47-3, and they're not signing. They're not.
Yeah, probably not.
Alex stays in the chats. Wanted to make a comment about the fact that Seattle doesn't have great food. He says, no, there are pockets of goodness. Am I right in that, Alex?
Yeah, many other, we can view of the Pacific Ocean, which I think you have in San Francisco, but not in the other ballparks. So you can, gaze out into the shipyard. But there's they have Detroit pizza, which I think is not, it's good, but it's not from here. Do you guys know about a Seattle dog? Has anyone had one of those?
Mm-mm.
It's cream cheese and onions, which I think is not appealing.
Oh,
but
God.
Oh, God.
I just got a stomach ache. I'm sorry, Alex.
Alec, have you tried the grasshoppers in Seattle?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
I'll keep an eye out.
Good question. Let's go over to another. I'm going to go to another author. Michael Ortman is here this evening. Mike presented to us a while back, and he was great. How you doing, Mike?
I'm well, Bruce. Thank you, and thank you for joining us tonight. Very timely. You have a new follower as of tonight, so I'm looking forward to digging in. But very timely for me personally, because top of my bucket list in baseball was always to meet my childhood idol, Frank Howard. who passed away earlier
Oh,
today.
yeah.
It was a very
Yeah.
moving day for us. In all the bucket lists you've seen and heard from fans, are there common ones that show up all the time? And I got a follow-up question, but tell us which ones you see most often.
Yeah. So there's two categories. And I think, if you don't want to torment yourself, you should spend some time deciding what is in your control and then what's not. So, of course, everybody wants to see a no-hitter, but that's not really something that you can make happen. So, no-hitters and perfect games are obviously high up on the list in terms of nice to see. It would be lucky if World Series games, All-Star games, things like that. The number one item that, again, was new to me when I started the show was something called the Midnight Sun Game in Fairbanks, Alaska. And we actually had a chance to do that in June of this year. So for those who don't know, the Alaska Gold Panthers are a collegiate summer league team. And each year, because of the insane light available in Alaska, they play a game that starts at 10 o'clock at night and it rolls through the midnight hour, and they don't turn on the lights. So you're outside, you're watching a ball game at midnight, and the stadium lights are off. So that's one of the top ones that's travel related, followed by, overseas ball like NPB or KBO type stuff.
Does the Field of Dreams show up often?
Yes. Yeah. That's another big one. Either just visiting the movie site, or, now that they've started to do those, I guess they've only had two of them, the games there.
And in 24, they won't have it there. It'll be in Alabama on Juneteenth. Do we
At
know if
Rickwood,
it's going
right.
back there in 25?
I haven't heard anything about that yet, so I'm not sure. I would.
Now on the top. It's now on the top of my bucket list, so I gotta go.
Yeah. Which
Gotta go.
one is Field of Dreams or Rickwood?
Field of Dreams.
Yeah, I can understand why. I haven't been out there either, but it's something that I would like to do as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One of the directors of SABR is heavily involved with the Field of Dreams. He is the CEO there. That's Dan Evans. Used to run the Dodgers and the White Sox. Dan is a friend of the chapter and is a huge force within SABR, and we are hoping to see him again in a meeting very soon. But the guy's too darn busy for his own good. Dan, if you're watching this one, make some time. Let's see you someday, my friend. I want to go to Karen Halloran because she's been saying she's got a question. Karen, you're up.
Thank you. I was wondering, so being from Pittsburgh, I'm sorry about that, but what is the best ballpark that you've ever seen?
My answer is PNC in Pittsburgh. I mean, that's I don't know if it was just I caught it on. I mean, it's got to be top 3 of just about everybody who answers that question. So, but for me, I was there on an absolutely perfect night. It was a June evening, and it was just one of those nights that you never wanted to end. And I got some insight from somebody who told me to sit up on the 200 level directly behind home plate. So you have that picturesque view of the bridges and the city line behind it, the river, of course. And it was just magical. And I think it's everything that baseball should be.
Okay, thank you.
My good friend Dixie Tarango has a question. Dixie, go get him.
I will go right down the line here. First of all, if you were at game 6 in 1975, I was at games 2 and 7.
Oh, how about that?
At this moment, I have been to all the stadiums in use except for Anna's because it's the newest one.
Yeah.
And I've been to 55 altogether of the ones that no longer are in existence.
Yeah.
You're right. PNC is the best one, not Oracle. PNC by that much.
Yeah.
I was there when we had the convention, SABR convention there 7 years ago. It was the most beautiful day of the summer. I was up in one section in right field, and you could see all of the city and all of the bridges. Game was great. It was 90 degrees. It was fabulous. My question is, how in God's name do you select a person to do your podcast?
Good question.
Yeah. It's basically at the end of every episode, I kind of have this spiel on the way out that says, you know, if this sounds like something that you'd like to do, send me an email, basically. And that's just kind of how it goes. There's this little application on the website that basically says, you know, give me a condensed version of your baseball story and maybe some of the things that you would like to talk about. And from there, we just get something scheduled and record.
By the way, I've seen 3 no-hitters.
My goodness. Okay.
Miami, the Sabre one in Arizona, and
Oh,
one
that's
here-
right. Yes. What was the third one?
The one was here in Boston.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah. So it sounds like you need to come on the show and tell your story, but I have a feeling that most of these folks here would make for absolutely phenomenal guests. So
You
we'll
probably
have
only have 100,000 possible people.
You know, sometimes people don't want to talk about themselves. It can be a little, there's a little bit of hesitancy here and there.
It's fun. They should be
Yeah.
happy to go on.
Exactly. Exactly. That's what I think.
I can tell you, I had a fantastic time when Anna invited me in to do the podcast. We recorded it over Zoom. It was easy to get started and get going, and she is a supportive and gracious host who can drive the conversation and make all of her guests look just great for the audience. If any of you have any designs to guest on her podcast, do it. I'm telling you, do it. But what I want to ask is, it's kind of a basic question too. How do you start a podcast? Here I am. I'm doing this over Zoom with a Zoom account I posted on my YouTube profile, and hope that, you know, a few folks from SABR check in on what we're doing up here. You have a international following. How do you do this?
It's a lot easier than it sounds. You
What?
know, yeah, I mean, there's the barrier to entry is very low. It requires not much, to be honest. I had some microphones from my days of playing music and just sort of utilized those, but realistically, you know, you can find those fairly cheap anywhere on Amazon or whatever. And Bruce alluded to it already. We recorded in Zoom. I just fire up the recording. It spits out 2 separate audio files, one for me and one for the guest. And then I just drop those into an audio editor and clean them up a little bit. And once the file's done, it gets uploaded to a podcast host. I use one called Buzzsprout, and they just send it everywhere. They make it go everywhere. It goes to Apple, it goes to Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Podcast, basically anywhere that somebody might be looking for it. So it's a lot easier. The file just has to go to one place, and then it just kind of gets aggregated elsewhere.
How many downloads or listens do you get in a week?
It ranges between, you know, 300 to 700, depending on, you know, if some new person finds the show, there's over 100 episodes. So a lot of times one person will download dozens at a time, which helps. But yeah, that's kind of where the range is.
That's very interesting. You're not exactly hidden when it comes to what you do out there. And you're telling, I would have thought it would have been more downloads per week. Am I naive in that aspect, or is that average?
That's a
Does that
good
make
question.
sense?
Yeah. It's a good question. I read a statistic somewhere that said like 95% of podcasts don't make it past about 40 downloads a week. So, and then I think there's probably a big gap between, you know, folks who are kind of on that lower range compared to obviously like the John Boys and the ESPN run podcasts and things like that. So I think the average, probably if you're going to go by straight average instead of like a mean or median or whatever it is that we're supposed to remember from high school math, is probably skewed a little more based on just how polar opposite those numbers are.
That's very interesting. There's so many of them out there.
Mhm.
There's several that SABR members do.
Mhm.
We all know, we're here tonight for you, and there's also Almost Cooperstown, This Week in Baseball History, Baseball and Barbecue. We're gonna have those guys on too.
Nice.
Wonderful podcasts that many of our members do that I'd be interested to compare listenership just to see how it goes for folks like you these days. I'm gonna shift gears and go to Gary Joquim, who has a question or comment. Gary, how are you this evening?
Oh, doing great.
And I see the kitty.
It's still afternoon. Yeah, this is Jack.
Hello, Jack.
All 20 pounds of Jack. I just had a follow-up question to the question line that you were just pursuing. Can you quantify the cost of the equipment, reasonable microphones, and the ongoing licensing costs and initial fees for the software? What would be the total startup cost for someone interested in starting a podcast?
Good question. I think you could find a decent microphone for probably under $40. I think the one I'm talking on right now cost me 20. So yeah, that's really not much of a barrier. Zoom has, I think if you can keep it under 40 minutes, it's free. I have a paid account just through my work, so I kind of get that as a work perk. The hosting for my show runs me $12 a month, and I use GarageBand, which came free on my computer. So don't have to pay for that editing software if you don't want to either. So it's actually quite affordable, at least in terms of getting started. You don't have to throw hundreds of dollars at something. If you can spend as much money as you want, I can tell you that, but you don't have to.
Yes.
I see Ben has been making some comments in the chat, and he has his hand raised, so I'm going to go to him in a minute, but Dixie was up first. I'm going to go to Dixie. You've got one. Go.
I was just wondering, how long is the broadcast?
I like to try to keep it around 30 minutes. Sometimes it bumps up a little closer to 45, or, up even beyond that sometimes. It's just, it never is going to run longer than an hour, because I feel like people's attention spans are kind of fading these days.
Does it depend on the guest and how well the whole thing is going?
Yeah, definitely. It depends on, one, how many stories they have, two, just how much they want to talk, and three, just kind of how the banter goes between the two of us. But some people will talk about 50 years of baseball history, and those are obviously going to run a lot longer than, a 22-year-old kid who's only been to a handful of games so far.
Ben Abel from Vancouver. Ben, how are you?
Very good. I was
It's
just
good to
listening
see
to
you.
Anna because I've been podcasting for 3 years, and I use all the same tools, from GarageBand to Buzzsprout to a lot of the same materials, and spending the same amount of money at $12 a month. But what I found with podcasting is I had background in sports writing, and then with the pandemic, it's funny you mentioned the 2020 baseball season and being at that World Series for when there was no fans, because I wrote for a sports betting site that got shut down because there was no sports for a while, obviously. And so I tried to do a podcast because I was like, I got to keep my sports writing thing going, even though I'm not getting paid for it. And so that's why I started podcasting, but I'm into my third season. But I branded it such that I shared an episode of the chat, but it's Vancouver Canadians, which is high A team for the Blue Jays. So if I cover any baseball related stuff, it's that team, because my podcast is local to Vancouver, Canada area sports.
Nice. The Vancouver, I've been to Vancouver. I haven't been to a Canadians game. I've heard really good things about them. Aren't they the ones who do the sushi race in the sixth
They
inning?
are the ones that do the sushi race, which is probably, is it like famous all across North America? I guess maybe it is.
Yeah, that's how I know that team is. I had a guy come on the show who was actually, he got to run as, I don't know, spring roll or California roll or something like that. And he told a story about being in the mascot race. And
Right.
yeah, so I'd love to get back up out there. That's just a beautiful part of the world.
Roger Kaplan has no microphone tonight. I'm hoping that I'm translating his question correctly. He dropped this in the chat. What did someone say in an interview that made you try out? I think what he's trying to say is, did you interview someone who gave you an idea for your bucket list?
Oh, every day. Yeah.
Okay.
The Midnight Sun game was something I hadn't heard of before I started talking to people. The idea of trying to get to a game at one single ballpark, watching all 30 teams come through that same ballpark was something I never would have thought about before. Japan, going to Japan for baseball was never even on my radar, and now it's slowly making its way up the list as I shouldn't say slowly, it's quickly making its way up the list as probably the next big thing I want to kind of focus on and put resources towards. So everything that every time I talk to somebody, I come up with new ideas that just they make me spend more money. They make the bucket list grow every single time. I should be checking things off, but instead it gets longer and longer. I think just the spirit of Roger's question, it kind of reminds me of a point that I would like to make about the show. And that is that, I started this show in 2020 because of having unlimited amounts of downtime, effectively, being stuck at home and everything. And what it really taught me was that baseball is so much more than whatever the Tampa Bay Rays are doing today. Baseball is so much more than, whatever happens at this specific game that you go to. It's the conversations you're having with the people you're there with in between innings. It's the people that you're connecting with all across the world who happen to love something just as much as you do. And I feel like in a way it's kind of saved me and kept me sane, because I've gotten so much more out of baseball than I ever could have imagined just by learning the intricacies and the community based around it. So I think that was probably like my biggest takeaway, is that I should spend more time focusing on everything that the game is giving to me rather than being so concerned with what happens in that specific moment of time.
That was a fascinating comment. I feel the very same way, and that's kind of my elevator pitch for SABR. And I think you and I had this conversation a while back when I invited you to join. You join this group, or you join your social media group, and you find these like-minded individuals who want to talk more about the overall experience as opposed to the why did that guy do that in the fourth inning would do. And I don't even want to talk about that. Hey, my guys won last night. This is great. Oh, my guys got blown out by their number 5 starter and look stunk. I want to have those conversations. Oh man, you want one for you, Anna? You know what? I want to go to Japan and watch baseball too. I'm envious of you, because I don't know if I'd ever get that opportunity to do so, but I know, based on our connection on social media and our connection through SABR, that eventually you're going to go to Japan, you're going to watch a game, whether it's be the Tokyo Giants or wherever you get to see, and those pictures and that experience is going to be detailed on social media, in the Bucket List website, or in our community, or X, or whatever. And I get to live vicariously through that because you're part of the community that we're all involved with. And that is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And you started off the evening with, a point of saying there was for a long time root for the home team. And now it seems to kind of be backsliding in towards, maybe some fan bases that haven't been super friendly to one another. There's arguments online, arguments in person at the ballpark or whatever. And you have to remember that the next line of that song is, if they don't win, it's a shame. You know, it's not the end of the world. Like, that song is, hey, we're out here, we're getting to do this amazing, incredible thing, and it's bonus if my team wins, but if they don't, well, oh well. So I think that my perspective on the game is kind of shifting more that way, in terms of what is it that I really love about baseball, and does it really come down to if my team wins or loses? And I try to tell myself as much as possible that it doesn't. And that's kind of, again, kept me sane and kept me able to really soak in moments that otherwise might have been ruined because my team lost the game or something along those lines.
And that is something that I have tried to teach or relate over the years. And with a lot of these talking heads, commentators, however you want to put it, who are out to stir up trouble.
Yeah. Right.
You know, I saw something in the chat that I just want to point out for just a minute. We do have a member of baseball history in our midst this evening. Melissa Lutke is here this evening and made a comment. Melissa, are you able to unmute and come on video for a minute to say hello to Anna, or no? She may or may not be, but Melissa Lutke is here this evening. And
no, I'm here. I'm here, Bruce.
Hi, Melissa. How are you?
I am well, thank you. And I was just so blown away by Anna's comment, and I was so glad you picked up on it and underscored it, because that is exactly, my God, Anna, you just captured a real essence of why, you know, in my 72 years of life, you know, why baseball has been so central to all of them. Communities change, the generations change. You know, taking my 4-year-old daughter to her first baseball game at Fenway Park was like my mother taking me to mine, you know, so many years earlier. And I don't know, it's just been wonderful. So thank you so much. I arrived late, but I obviously arrived just in time.
Thanks for saying that. I appreciate that. And
Yeah,
it's one of the things I continue to learn more about every single day. So it's been my biggest takeaway, and something I've just been so thrilled to have had the opportunity to kind of pick up along the way.
Yeah.
Two things
Well,
along those lines.
well,
go ahead, Melissa. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. No, I'm just saying it meant a lot to hear you say it. And just such a reminder as we're in the midst of a, you know, improbable World Series, you know, that so far has proven that baseball is just such a mysterious game. Perhaps that's another reason that I love it so much. Anyway, I'm going to shut up now and listen to Anna, because that's why we're all here. But thank you, Bruce. Good evening, and I'm glad you're doing this.
I'm so happy to have you here, and I think I'm going to give this a shot right here, Anna. I think you should get Melissa's contact information, connect with her directly, and get her on that podcast, because I think her episode would be absolutely fabulous.
I would love that. I would absolutely love that.
Bruce, we'll do it. I'll put my email in the chat, and now I'll shut up so I can hear more from you, Anna. And I'll look forward to talking to you sometime. Thank you, Bruce. I'll put it in the chat. And
I'm actually going to take her email, because I'm going to see if I can get her to come on for one of our meetings as well. Now, when I was planning this meeting, I got a couple of emails from people who were saying, you got to get us out of here so that we can go watch Game 3 of the World Series. Ben was the biggest offender, and that's okay. Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just being honest, Bruce, because the same question is on everybody's mind, right?
Well, the same question is on everybody's mind as to who is Anna is rooting for, but I think I know already.
I'll stay at least until 5 o'clock.
Anna, let's wrap this up by give us where we can find you. all of it, the website, your social media, how can we connect with Anna DiTomasso and the Baseball Bucket List?
Yeah. Baseballbucketlist.com is the website. It's the easiest place to get a hold of all those social media channels. If you search for Baseball Bucket List on social media, you should see a logo of a bucket leaning on a baseball bat. And that was designed by Kirby Bucket was designed by Dan Simon, who's a legendary logo designer for many minor league teams. So you'll see Kirby, and if you see Kirby, that's me. Anna at baseballbucketlist.com is my email address. That's the best way to get a hold of me if you want to chat about anything. And anyone who has any desire to come on the show and chat baseball with me for about 30 minutes, I would absolutely just love that, because that's the whole idea. So I encourage you to check out a few episodes, and if it sounds like something you might want to do, then reach out to me.
And you will have a fabulous time doing it. I guarantee it. Anna's approach to this is top notch. So last question I'm going to put this out to everybody, and I'm going to do it kind of visually. If you are thinking that the Texas Rangers are going to win tonight, raise your hand so I can see it now. I got 1, I got 2, I got 3. I got 3, 4, 5. Okay, so is everybody saying that the rest of us here are saying that Arizona's winning tonight? Come on. Ooh, James is shaking his head yes, that Arizona's winning tonight. Yeah, that's a bold prediction for a new member here. I tell you what. Dixie, I know, is behind Arizona and whatnot. But hey, I think it's going to be a good game. I think this whole thing goes 7. What do you think, Anna?
I say Rangers in 6. That's my gut feeling. I it could be wrong, but that's what I'm feeling.
Rangers in 6. Ooh, we're gonna have we'll keep you honest on that through social media, my friend.
See how that ages.
We'll see how that ages in a week. That's right. So, all right, next week, Monday, November 6th, 7 o'clock Eastern time, Eastern Standard Time. Oh man. We are going to have award-winning photographer Bob Busser with us to talk about his career as a sports photographer, his extensive catalog of photographs of baseball stadiums from around the country, and his deep connections to our great game. I think it's going to be a real fun meeting. He has not been one who has presented to SABR in the past, so I think this is going to be a fun and original meeting. I think we're all going to have a good time with it. Let's get everybody in front of the TV for Game 3 of the World Series. Anna DiTomasso, I want to thank you very much for doing this. You are extraordinary, and we are so lucky to have you in SABR. Thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank y'all for having me. I had a great time, and glad we got you out of here in time for Game 3, because I'm going to go plop down in front of that TV too and go Rangers.
You do that. Let's go have some fun. Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.